G'day and welcome back for more of The Collector. Now, last time things did not end particularly well, with the loss of my little miner that I was actually really happy with. And that means I need to build a new miner today, because I need to be able to collect resources quicker than I could do with my hand drill. What I'm leaning toward is a hydrogen-based miner, and potentially even a large grid hydrogen-based miner. I'm not exactly sure why I'm thinking large grid. There aren't any particularly great reasons. Large versus small. Small is a bit cheaper to build. You can still fit a fairly good amount of cargo on a small grid, miner. Actually, maybe I've just convinced myself to change my mind. Maybe I will go small grid. Small grid is going to be easy to build. Small grid is going to be easy to move, and with a few small grid large cargoes, I should be able to carry enough for my purposes. Like, I don't need gargantuan amounts of materials to build my ship. I just need to be able to mine stuff like gold fairly easily. So, I think, yeah, I'm going to go small grid. I might go small grid mining vessel, and maybe I'll build the scout vessel that I was thinking of in small grid as well, but have a connector or a hinge or something like that on it, which is connected to a large grid connector and a large grid ore detector, because scouting with a small grid ore detector is a little bit annoying. I'd much rather scout with a large grid. Alright, so small grid hydrogen miner. I do have previously existing designs that could work here, except most of my designs have actually used much larger numbers of drills than what I'm able to use here. Since I'm limited to 5, I'm kind of leaning toward doing something that's a bit more of a tunneling miner. We'll start with a large hydrogen tank, and then I'm going to try and get 2 large cargo containers on this. If I can get 2 large cargo containers full of whatever ore I'm collecting, I think that'll be probably enough for my purposes. Because I'm not going to have to fly far to go back and drop this off at the big ship, so it really shouldn't need to have a huge amount of ore. In fact, maybe I'm better off going even just 1 large cargo, keeping this fairly small and compact, so if I do lose it, I haven't lost everything. Maybe. Keep it really small? Nah, let's save a few trips. Another large cargo. Alright. Now, for the drill locations. I think what I'll do is put a medium cargo in here, just to give myself a bit of space off the front. Then, a conveyor converter. From the conveyor converter, I want to get the 5 drills on here. And with this being small grid, I am more comfortable putting some spacing into where the drills, into the arrangement of the drills. So if I go like this and add these around here, and then we go to our drills, I was thinking could put the outer 4 like this, which will give me a fairly wide spread, and then have the center one. Do I want horizontal or vertical? Horizontal always feels more. What do I want? A completely irrelevant design decision that's purely about aesthetics. I'm going to go vertical, just for different, because I would normally go horizontal. The upshot of an arrangement like this is that these drills should clear out even the space in between them without too much trouble, especially if I'm moving the drill head around a bit. But it also gives me the option to do something like this, where I can put the reversing thrusters in these gaps. I think we can have 8 reverse thrusters arranged like this if I wanted, which means it's very unlikely I'm going to bump those reverse thrusters against anything. Yeah, this should work. Now, cockpit. One of the reasons I put this cargo container in here, the medium one, was to try and fit a cockpit in about here, because it gives me enough room. Obviously, this is going to be a wonky design, and part of me is kind of tempted just to leave it as is. You know what? I am going to. So if I put my cockpit there, that's going to pipe it up, which means it's connected up to the system. I could try and fit some oxygen on this. But to be honest, I'm not going to stay in this thing very long, I hope. So it shouldn't be needed. And then I just can put a connector on the back here. And then figure out where I'm going to put batteries. Which make most sense down each side. I don't need much battery power on this because it is hydrogen. But if it's going to be disconnected from my ship for any period of time, it might be nice to have a pair. Like so, and then I can use this space that's the equivalent of the cockpit on that side for things like event controllers, so that I can have an auto disconnect and reconnect. So we go timer block. I don't know that I need both of those, but event controller, gyros. I might weld this up and then I'll start adding the remaining thrusters, and then we've got a drill ship. Simple. Oh, before I forget to do it, because I will forget to do it if I don't do it right this instant, is I'm going to put a small grid auto detector on this one, even though I'm planning on building that scout ship, because I need to make sure I've got some sort of detection on this. It's so annoying when I forget to put that on my mining ships, and I'm like, where exactly is that ore I was looking for? I can't find it anymore. So you may have noticed something a little bit odd that I've done, and it's something I don't normally do. I have built not connected to my grid. So normally I would build everything connected up to my main grid, so that I've got power coming from it, so that I've got the ability to fill it with fuel and all that sort of stuff. This thing isn't going to be able to. But because I'm building batteries and because I've got some ion thrust components, I can just use them as a little shunter to get it back. And I kind of just wanted to have a little bit of room around it to work with. And I wasn't feeling like building straight off the connector. I probably should have, though. That was a little bit of an oopsie. I just started thinking about once I'd already started welding these up. I'm like, I can actually recover from this. It's not ideal, but I can recover from this. As I was welding this up, I started to realize that I could probably use these little thruster positions for the other directions as well. So that's what I'm going to do for some of my lateral thrust. I know I could put it back here along the side, but I was like, let's do something different. I like different. Different's fun. So, if we go... That's 2 pushing rightward. That's 4. We do the same up here. And we go lift. Like so. And now we have up, down, left, right, and reverse. And then I just need to find a good location for some forward thrust. Which could be on the back of the drills, because I haven't put anything that would block that direction as yet. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 4 forward and 8 reverse. Which seems unbalanced, except, let's be real, I probably want more reverse than forward thrust on a miner. And once I've flown this around a bit, I can see if I need to add some more, because what I could do is put things like conveyor converters on top of these and add more thrusters in lots of directions off there. That'd be quite easy. But yeah, basics of the ship are in once I weld this up. And I just need to do things like set up those timer blocks and event controllers to see if I can make this auto dock and undock. Set up some lighting. And I think that's everything. Dock, undock, lighting. Yeah, I think that's all. When I first realized I should have built this connected to the ship, I was saying that I was going to use ion thrusters to push it back in, but I do have another option, which may well be easier. And that is build an O2H2 gen on here and then just transfer some ice across and let it fill up its own tanks, which is, I think, what I'm going to do. Cool. I think this should work. I've got fuel on board. I've got ore detector. I need to get some lighting. I need to set up the connection things. But I was just looking at this from a distance and going, huh. When I'm drilling with this, I'm going to be waggling this back end around quite a bit. And that happens to be where my very explosive hydrogen fuel is. So maybe I want to build just a little bit of padding there. Something that can get hit before it does. And I'm thinking of just doing something a little bit, maybe try and give it a little bit of style or something. We'll see. Just give it a little bit of some 4 little winglets. Make it look a bit like a submarine. Okay, yeah. That looks suitably ridiculous. But that should hopefully prevent me from too easily hitting the tank against some rocks if I'm mining. And it adds... I'm not going to go so far as to say it adds some style, but it adds some character. Yeah, let's go character to the ship. Oh man, what am I doing? Right, so next up... lighting. Okay, so I've added 2 spotlights facing forward. Hopefully they'll be in a position where they can actually provide some amount of lighting. But if not, I've got 4 interior lights going around the drills. A couple of them on the batteries, just so that, because these ones will be pointing backwards, they're not going to provide much light going forward. At least these ones can provide a bit of forward light where the spotlights aren't effective. And then of course, some rearward lighting to ensure that I can see the connector if we're in the dark and I'm approaching to dock up. Cool. Over time, I think I'm going to potentially try and add some styling to this, but I don't want to put too much effort into adding style to this thing just yet. Because I feel like that's probably... it's probably a bit rich considering I just destroyed the previous one. Let's get this hooked up. See what I can do in terms of getting it, getting the docking cycle automated. Basically what I want it to do when it docks and undocks is set its tank to stockpile, set its batteries to recharge, turn the ore detector off, turn its thrusters off, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot to do with the docking sequence to make sure that it's all sensible, and it's just nice to have it happen just when you connect the connector. Now we are in position for some testing. So with a ship like this, there's lots of stuff that I want to turn on, off, turn to recharge, turn to stockpile, all that sort of stuff. So to connect up to the main ship, I want a bunch of stuff to happen, and I want it to happen every time, and I want it to be minimal effort. So that's where the event controllers come in. I'm going to grab my event controller, which I've named Miner EC Dock, and I'm going to set up some actions for it. I'm going to set up those actions on the event connector connected. So that's when I lock my connector. And I want it to be monitoring this miner connector, so we'll add that. And then we can set up our actions. The actions I want are quite numerous, and although we do have 9 hotbars, which we can cycle through with controlled and the number, I would also use things like timer blocks to action these events. Now there's one event that I'm not sure this is going to work for, and I just want to quickly test it. And that is, can I use the event controller to activate a timer block to turn the batteries off recharge? The reason I'm not sure this is going to work is because as soon as I unlock that connector, my ship loses power, which means that the timer block doesn't work. Now, event controllers have a bit of a buffer here where they can work for a short period without power. So they could change the recharge status of these batteries, but I just want to quickly check and see if I'm correct that we can't do this with the timer block. So timer block dock is going to go in this left slot, and it's going to be trigger now. This left slot shows the events that will happen when the lock locks, and the right one is when it unlocks. So we'll set that to trigger now as well. And then we'll just quickly test this with setup actions. This will be recharge on because this is the docking one for both of those batteries, and then for undock we're going to have enable auto because we want it to supply power when it unlocks. So if I lock up to the base, we can now see that the batteries are on recharge mode, and if I unlock, the batteries are on auto. Cool. So because that all happens so quickly, it doesn't seem to matter that it might run out of power, which is good because that makes things much simpler because I can just set up these timer blocks now. So, timer block for docking. Setup actions. So we want the batteries. Once we're docked, we also want to turn off all of these thrusters. I could probably use a group in this instance, but I've gotten into the habit of turning off thrusters and turning them on as individual blocks because I used so many projectors recently and multiple versions of the same grid. This is just a thing that ensures that when you project and print off a second copy of something, it doesn't break. But it's definitely not required here, but I'm just going to do it anyway because I think it's a good habit for me to get into. So that's all the thrusters off. Then I also want to make sure that the hydrogen tank is set to stockpile on. I want to make sure that these gyroscopes are set to toggle off because we don't need to use power from them. Drills will also be off. We can turn off these O2H2 gens, turn off the ore detector, and then turn off all the lights. Then I need to set up the inverse for undock. Okay, in theory that should be everything set up. So if I lock, it all shuts down. Oh, that's my suit lights. I was like, where are those lights coming from? And then we disconnect, and it all turns back on. Nice. And we got almost a full tank from that brief connection. Cool. So that is one miner fully set up. So with the mining vehicle built, I guess I should probably try and build my little scout vehicle, the ion-powered thing that I was planning. Let's just connect this up, and I'm going to rearrange this connection setup here. What I'm going to do is cut out this piece here and replace it with a junction so I can put a connector facing forward. And what I'll probably do once I've built the detector ship is swap these around. Put the mining ship facing forward so it's kind of sleek and in line with the rest of the big grid. And then the little detector ship, because it'll be much smaller, it can dangle downwards without risking it getting snapped off too easily. Because something the size of this miner will probably just get broken off fairly easily. Am I out of iron? No. Is my assembler full of some? No. Why can't I get the small steel tubes? Okay, yep, because I've disconnected the systems. Because the assembler is actually connected through here, which means I need to go around to here to grab the stuff. There we go. Because my conveyor system is weird. Yay. Yay for weird things that make things confusing later. Oops. Connector. This thing really just needs to be a cockpit, thrusters, and a way to hook up to a large grid connector and detector. Doesn't need to be anything more fancy than that. So I built the connector there, control panel, switch lock. Then we want batteries. Then where have we got? Ion thrusters. I like the sci-fi ones. I want this to have a moderate amount of thrust. Although I should probably check how many thruster components I've got. I'm pretty sure I've got plenty to build a small... Yeah, 261. That's way more than I'm going to need for a small grid thing like this. Alright. So I kind of want this thing to have very good omnidirectional thrust. So unlike my usual thing where I definitely have a tendency to build stuff with heavier thrust in one direction than others. And that's deliberate because it means that you've got a lighter ship overall, which means your thrust in that direction becomes more powerful. But when you're taking latency and things like that into account, you kind of need to make sure that you can stop. And when I'm going to be flying this fairly close to the surface of asteroids, I really want to be able to stop quickly if it's needed, and no matter the direction. So what I've got so far is 8 forward thrust, and then 6 left, right, up, down. Then I just need to figure out how I'm going to place my connectors so that I've got the large grid ore detector, and then my reverse thrust. I want to put in something to create a bit of extra space before then I put down another connector, a big connector, and a big ore detector, so it'll kind of stick all out off the front, with this sort of being a little shunter off the back. And I'm trying to think what I can fit in that space that's not going to be super heavy, but might still be useful. So maybe an oxygen tank? Assuming I can then put a cockpit on top of it, which, yeah, I'll be able to. If we go with that, then from the oxygen tank, I can do something like a conveyor converter on it, which will then allow me to pipe into the cockpit, and from the back of the cockpit... Oh, wait, no. Then from the bottom of the conveyor converter, I can run a line down to this connector, which will then have the whole thing piped up, which means I can have oxygen piped into my cockpit aboard my little scout ship. Cool. I'm going to build these so that I don't misalign the connectors. Alright, then we go to connector. This is going to be weird flying this around. Because then we stick an ore detector on this. And that gives me a 150 meter radius ore detector on a small grid. Totally not weird at all. Nah. Nuh-uh. What am I doing? The big downside of using a connector for this is that the connector is quite large. Like, you're adding a whole extra large grid block to this. That can be one of the advantages of using a rotor rather than using a connector, is that you can compact this sort of connection down. I'm sort of tempted to try that out. Ah, why not? I actually just thought of a good reason to do it. And that good reason, it's not really a good reason, but that good reason is that if I build this with a rotor, I can spin the connector on the front. I mean, I can spin the ore detector. You can just have it spinning for the sake of having it spinning. Let's see if I can make this work. I will probably need to finish this ship first. So if we go advanced rotor 3x3, grind off the rotor part, build this up. And if I build up the rest of the ship and figure out where I'm going to put the reverse thrust, which can probably just go around the sides here. This. 1, 2, 3. And same on this side. That shouldn't end up cooking anything that I don't want it to. Alright. I'll get this built because I'm going to need to move this a little bit in order to connect up to the large rotor head that I want to connect it to. Okay, we still need a gyroscope, and then we need an event controller and 2 timer blocks just so we can set this up exactly the same sort of way that I've set up the mining ship. Because it is really nice having a one-touch docking setup for your ships. The reason I needed to disconnect this from the main ship before I connected up the large rotor part to the small rotor is that I need to be able to place this, and I can't place it intersecting with the ship. If I place it out here, I can't actually hook up to this automatically with that rotor head. Like if I go to the with the rotor base, I should say. If I go to the advanced rotor and click attach, nothing's going to happen. But if I move in and line it up now that I've disconnected from the ship, I should then be able to go advanced rotor, attach. And it's now connected. Build that. I can then put on the ore detector and we're done. And it's a lot smaller than if I'd done this with the connector, because I don't have that extra large grid block, which is actually kind of nice. I am curious to discover how this is going to feel to fly around. Need some lights. I'm going to be flying near the asteroids. I'm going to use some interior lights directly onto the ore detector, because large grid interior lights have a greater range. And then I'll put some spotlights on the main ship. Actually, that reminds me, I haven't set up the light ranges on this ship. Set all to maximum. Ore detector ship setup. Let's max the range on the ore detector. And then I'll set up my docking sequence. Okay, so just like before, we grab our event controller, set it up to event connector connected. Find our connector, add it to the list, set up our actions. We'll grab our timer blocks. Oh, I didn't name those first. Let's name those so I know which one's which. Finder, TB, dock. Finder, TB, undock. Dock there, trigger now. Undock here, trigger now. And then set up all my actions for docking and undocking, which are fairly straightforward. Toggle block off for the rotor. That's a new thing. If you're wondering why I use recharge on off and then enable auto for these two docking and undockings, it's because we don't have a recharge on and a recharge off. But this effectively creates that setup. It's because this enable auto is effectively recharge off. It's also effectively discharge off, which gives us one less command here, which is kind of nice, I suppose. So it's doing the same thing, which is nice. I want to make sure I'm turning off all of the unnecessary stuff when I connect up to the main ship, because I don't want to need to remember to do all that when I disconnect from the server. So I make sure I turn off all of the lights and all of the thrusters. The thrusters are also important to turn off because you don't want to be wasting power while you're flying around with this thing fighting any movements I do with the main grid. I should really have just created a group on this. I'm not going to be printing these off again. I don't need to do this the proper way. But it is a good habit. I've set up the most important thing, which is this now spins. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to leave that spinning, but just in case I can. Disco ball? Yeah, disco ball. There we go. I think it kind of mostly feels okay. Oh yeah, it's not too bad. Now it should stop spinning when I connect up to the main grid. Oh, hold up. Hold up a second. Hello. Platinum. I didn't spot you before. Oh. Very nice. Very, very nice. The disco ball detector has worked. I'm gonna have to go collect some of that. Let's go collect it. Should be able to spot that with my small grid detector on my mining ship. So I should be able to trade places between these two now. It'd be really nice if I can collect this platinum so that I can then have some backup ion thrusters. Wow, this thing is overlit. Holy cow. Intensity. Okay, it's a bit more like it. It was a bit much. I think it was up this way. Oh wait, no, this might not detect it because it's 50 meters. Okay, let's go find that again. Is the platinum relative to this? If I point this in the right direction, maybe that'll help me spot it. Mining ship. Obviously, normally I would just create GPSs for this, but that just makes it harder for editor splitsy. I don't want to do that. I am in the right spot. Alright, it is somewhere around here. Okay, let's go in. See if I find it. Oh, there we go. Perfect. That actually worked really nicely. Oh! 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 I forgot an important thing for a small grid mining ship. Because I'd been building in large grid, I forgot. I need to have an ejector system. I can't handle all this stone. I don't have much cargo space, so any stone I collect now I want to be able to throw out. So let's come back and build an ejector system. Or, as they're now known, small connectors. Basically, I want to dump the stone. Okay, where's going to be a good spot for that? I could get rid of these O2H2 gens. Do I have ice in them? Or are they empty? They're empty. Let's get rid of them. I don't need them. Because what I'm thinking I can do is not in disco. Where's the sorter? There we go. Place a sorter there, and then a regular connector on top. I can have big ejectors. There we go. This is probably... this will probably be reasonably effective, actually. The bigger connectors do throw out larger boulders at a time, so hopefully this will keep up with the drills. I could throw little connectors on the sides and have more to throw out, but I'm just going to keep it simple. Alright, so sorters. Rainall on. Filter mode whitelist, because I wanted to just throw out one thing. Stone add. Whitelist. Stone add. There we go. Alright, then connectors. So these will be connector, ejector, and connector, ejector. So these both need to be set to throw out. And I'll also do collect all. Now obviously that's just throwing these out, but that's because they got through the sorters before the sorters had their whitelist set up. Alright, cool. Now I'm good to go. Then I also need to set up on my hotbar a way to toggle these on and off. Then set them up in my docking sequence. I don't want them draining power either. There we go, done. Set up in the docking sequence. Set up for throwing out stone. Obviously I want to throw out the stone because I just don't need it now. I've got enough ores. If I need the stone, I've got the ability to turn off these sorters so that they won't be throwing anything out. But generally speaking, the stone is just not valuable to me when I've got access to ores. I don't want to be using up that cargo space. Around a corkscrew as I go in, I can make a pretty decent little tube for this. Oh, there's the platinum. I'm not honestly sure how much platinum I really need. Because obviously it would be nice to have ion thrusters, but do I specifically need them for anything? Oh, I know what I should do. I was just thinking, but do I, like, I just don't know that I do really need them for something. But I did just think of a function I should add to this mining ship. We should have an inventory full light. So I should have an event controller monitoring I guess I could pick any of the drills, because if they're full, then then the inventory's full. And then have a little light show up. So what do we got? Drills still aren't full. Cargo containers are slowly filling. But yeah, I should totally put a fill light on this. As I scrape my little tail fin, I'm glad I put the tail fin on. The larger ejector system seems to be working a treat. Throwing out so much more stone than the smaller ones do. It's not often I have room to fit those larger ones in as my ejection system though, so I think I'll still probably stick to the smaller connectors in general. Just had an opportunity here and it works quite nicely. If you got the space, can recommend. Oh, right. I know why I want to have ion thrusters. If I ever manage to find myself some uranium, I'm going to probably just want to run off uranium and not worry about hydrogen at all. I'll keep the hydrogen thrusters, because extra power, but as a general rule, if I have ion thrusters and uranium, that's going to be the best way to power my ship. And to move it. Yeah, okay. I do want to collect enough platinum here that I can refine it and build a decent number of large grid ion thrusters. Okay, drills are nearly full. Let's get out of here. Definitely feel like I'm less likely to break a small grid mining ship. Just so much less inertia. Obviously it's drilling less volume per trip, which is why there's less inertia, but still. I feel like sending myself on the extra trips is probably worth my while if I don't have to rebuild my mining ship every single week. Oh. Well, speaking of inertia, there goes the connector. At least I didn't pop the whole thing. Okay, connect up. Grab only in the inventories of this ship, and let's shuttle all this stuff across. So we got a total of about 100,000 kilos of platinum. That's pretty good per trip. So what I'm thinking of for this cargo system is maybe put some little flat panel lights at the back here. If I put 3 of them round here, what I could do is have one for each of the large cargoes, and then one for monitoring the drills. So once I see that the cargoes are full, I can either choose to stop then, or I can keep going. So let's grab those. I'm going to disconnect from the ship again, so that it's easier to find the blocks. So that'll be light panel 5, which can be light panel large cargo 1. Light panel drill, the middle one, and then large cargo 2 for the right one. So these I want to make red and have a very small radius. So I just want them to basically be indicator lights. And I need 2 more event controllers, because I've already got 2 on here and I'm only using 1, so I just need another 2. Some of you might be wondering why I'm not just using 1 event controller to monitor all of the cargoes, and that's because the event controller doesn't average between the cargoes. So if we have a look at our event controller once I've built these, we can see that we have a cargo filled percent equal to or greater than, and we can have multiple blocks selected. But even with the AND gate, any of the blocks can still trigger it and it can do weird things. So what I'm going to do is keep it to 1 block each. So the threshold is going to be, let's say 99%. So cargo filled equal to or greater than 99%, and we will select large cargo. This will be minor EC LC1. Select actions. Then we grab out LC1. Doesn't really matter whether it was 1 or 2. And then when it triggers, I want to turn it on. And when it's not triggered, I want to turn it off. We do the same with this one, but for the other cargo container. Lastly, we grab our other minor EC here, and we go drill. Now the drills I don't want to completely fill up, so I'm going to go 75%. And we'll just select... Actually, for this one I probably can select all of them. Because if any of them get over 75, I want this light to come on. Let's just go test this out. If I turn off my sorters, I can just grab some stone and test. See if these lights turn on correctly. So the 2 side ones should turn on when the large cargoes fill. And the top one should turn on when the drill fills, I think. Assuming I guessed at their names correctly. There we go, one's lit. Let's check our inventory. And one of our large cargoes is full. Cool. So the right one will typically turn on first. That's okay. Left one turns on. We should start seeing the drills fill. And the drills are full. Alright, let's check the drills. So... Oh, good. It's only one of the drills that's gone over. And that's kind of what I want. I don't want to end up throwing away good ore if there's a situation where I actually need that ore. Awesome. We have a system for telling when I'm getting full. I think I'll grab one more load of platinum, and then I would say it's time for me to move on from here. I have been here for way, way, way too long. Continue my hunt for gold. Same deal. Find my large cargo. Offload all the stone. I figured I may as well grab a load of stone since I filled it up, rather than just throwing it away straight away. We'll go grab that platinum now. I really do love that we've got vanilla solutions for this stuff. May not be as convenient as things like Digi's build info, where we can have all of the info straight on our HUD, but it is still nice that we can engineer something. Often when I'm mining in a cave like this, on my return trips, I will make the entryway just that little bit larger to make it easier for me on future trips. So I just keep popping out more and more and more, make the passageway easier and easier to get through, and make the camera do less weird things sometimes. The camera is not liking this particular mine. There's also a part of me that's thinking I should probably put a fourth one of those red lights on just for balance. Even if I don't actually use it for anything. Like, I suppose I could use it for the medium cargo getting full, but I really don't think that the medium cargo matters in this situation. It's useful to know that the large cargoes are getting full because then I'm getting close and I can monitor the lights more carefully. But I feel like the medium's not that important. So as you can see when I use the drills, if we set this to monitor everything, if we just use one event controller to monitor all of the cargo systems that are on this, like the connectors, the cargo containers, the drills, etc. If any of them go over that mark, it'll turn on the light. That's why I like this idea of using multiple event controllers. So we monitor our cargoes, our important cargoes, so that we get an idea when we're getting close to being full. And then we monitor the drills, because if any of the drills fill up, it's actually useful to know that. Because if any of the drills are filling and getting close to too full, you can't easily balance those because they don't push from one to another, but they will push into cargo. So I actually quite like the idea of not drilling too much of my ore out. If I'm in a different situation where I'm kind of static, and I don't want to waste a valuable deposit like a gold deposit if it's one of the thin ones, then it can be quite handy to know that I'm not going to destroy that ore by mining beyond the point where I've got any inventory space left. I'm also wasting my time. So you're effectively working with one drill less. Could, however, change my drill EC and increase its increase the amount of fill. So let's go up to 90%. There we go, lights on, let's go. I figure I'll allow myself to put some more style onto this ship once I've managed to keep this miner alive for more than a week. If I can keep it alive for more than a week, then it deserves to get some more style put on it. Because I actually kind of like it so far. I think I can come up with some ways to make this look pretty cool. The ore detector ship, though, that's just... I'm going to leave that looking ridiculous. So I think that's where its fun lies. A little thruster ball with a giant disco ball attached to it. Gently does it. Approach the connector. Try not to break it again. Cool. Yeah, 217,000 kilos of platinum. That'll do. Let's go hook this thing up. I'm going to put a toggle on off for the rotor here. Oh, this is actually heaps easier to fly without it spinning. Actually, no, it's not. It doesn't make a big difference. Cool. I can leave it spinning. Now, am I likely to find anything other than platinum and silicon here? I'm probably not. Cool, cool. Let's get moving on. With those rebuilt, I feel like I can start thinking about actually building some sort of cockpit onto my ship, which would be really nice. Definitely had to do that rebuild first, though. Get those ships functional so I can get out here and search some more. Ooh, that's what I'm also going to do. I am going to have this block toggle on off on this control bar in case I'm near stuff and I want to check it out. So, where is the home marker? This way. So, I think... let's head over to that little cluster, or this one down here. Let's go this one down here. Ooh, this is probably a little more fuel than I wanted to use, but my tanks are full. So I really don't need to worry. I've got full tanks! Yes! Also, I'm about to scream past one of my unknown signals. Okay, everything I have now is built from scratch. I don't have any remnants of the old survival pod. It's a little bit sad, but in two minds about how I feel about that. Kind of like my little mining submarine though. What have we got? Can I see anything on the surface of that asteroid? I can't. Oh, that's what we've got the finder ship for. Oh, it is so much nicer traveling at near 100 meters a second. Okay, there's something blue down the bottom. You can see that down that little asteroid, so it's probably going to be cobalt or magnesium here. What am I still to find? If we have a look, I've got some silver, I've got iron, I've got magnesium, I've got nickel, I've got cobalt, I've got platinum, so I need uranium and gold. Gold being the more important of those two. I can get by without uranium just fine, but I can't get by without gold. For me to travel 245,959 kilometers at 100 meters a second is a lot of maths and a very, very, very long time. Let's go scanning. Got ice here and cobalt. Haven't seen anything else yet. Don't think I need to go and collect any more ice just yet. I think I can dock up and we can continue. Probably going to be a long, long search for gold. Oof. Okay. Controlling this is a bit awkward, but for a disco ball detector, I think it's worth it. Alright, on to the next asteroid. I'm intentionally not going just for the nearest ones, but sort of trying to go for ones that are vaguely in the direction of the home marker, just so I get that feeling of, I've made progress, even if I really haven't made all that much. It's like, what, how far have I traveled now from my start marker? Just over 100 kilometers. Like 0.05% of my way there? Woo! Oh dear. Hang on, 100 meters a second. 245,956. So doing some rough napkin calculations, it will be approximately 683 hours before I would make it back to where that home marker is. I have got to find gold. I have got to find it soon, I hope. But I mean, I've still got a few big things to do on my main ship before the gold becomes, seriously, I really need to find gold. I've got nothing to do but to search for gold now. I can't make it home without the gold. Which is things like, I need to build a cockpit. I need to build the rear section. I need to put some styling on this thing. I should probably, not because I expect them to do anything, but just because, why not? Stick some guns on this. All that sort of stuff. But mainly the cockpit. I really want a pressurized cockpit with a cryo tube and those sorts of things. But that is all for next time. So there's all that and plenty more to come. And I will hopefully find gold soon and see you then.